Hey guys, thank you for being here today. I'm with David Weck. Maybe you guys don't know him, but everybody that has been on the sports industry has used his product. He's the inventor and creator of the Bosu ball. Today, David has more than one product. He's went on to create 6, 7, or 8 products. I have pretty much all of the product that he is putting out in the market. The guy, I think, is a genius. And anyway, David, thank you for being here. And it's a pleasure for me, honestly. When I ring, I ring that phone and I send you an email or I call you. I never thought that you're gonna reply to me. I gotta say, I was thinking this guy's gonna be too busy. But thanks a lot, man, for having the opportunity to chat with you. Okay.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. This is a paradigm shift to restore physical integrity for humankind. And physical education is the fundamental education. And right now, it's not being done well. It's being done very poorly. And we can have our cake and eat it too, in terms of getting stronger and becoming more athletic. And unless you marry stronger with more athletic, you are not doing your job.
I see.
So this idea that, core stiffness and your spine held rigidly immobilized in neutral, and that's how I have to run, and that's how I have to hit, and that's how I have to do blah, 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 blah. It's a failure to understand physics, biomechanics, and reality itself. You need to load, explode. And if you're putting exercises in me that are hardwiring this panic, this uprooting, this deer in headlights, where I can't load the ground right now because the tension is shooting up in my body, riddling me with restriction. This is literally the foundation that peer review exercise has put the industry on. They've done it with bully tactics. They are the gatekeepers of career advancement. They are putting their head in the sand because they are unwilling to acknowledge the mistake that they have made. And I wonder how many non-contact injuries have happened as a result of training to be frozen and squozen, stiff and neutral. That's the intent. That's what you're shooting for. You have to have core stability, and core muscles aren't for moving your core and your torso. They're for locking down your spine to not let it move. The whole thing is absurd. And this is just another opportunity to get that message out to a reasonable person who's willing to look at evidence and not cloaked in the fog of science to be imposed and foisted upon all the trainers, who then become, internet police, telling everybody that they're doing it wrong, right? For praise. Okay, now you're part of the club. Bosu balls suck. Yep, we get it. They make people weaker. Yep, we get it. They campaign against it, and I'm talking the highest of the high. Brad Schoenfeld, right? Fellow at the NSCA. Okay. Posting on social, big red X through above. This will not make you stronger. Oh, really? Well, why don't you answer the question that I'm asking right now? So it's a whole bunch of nonsense. It's a whole bunch of this egotistical limbic crisis, because if I had suddenly found out that what I'm teaching is fundamentally wrong, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I would have trouble eating. I wouldn't know what to do. So I would come clean and make the most of the situation. I wouldn't keep putting in bad money after good once
Yeah.
I find out that I'm a fraud.
No.
That's what's happened. That's what's happened. Is it's fraud. And they're not bad people. They're just unresolved egos who want to make more money and get more praise. And since they have the money and the praise right now, they look at this as a downfall. But what they don't realize is this downfall roots them to the truth. And now everything that they know, all the good things, can now be built upon a true foundation. So I'm not trying to throw a baby out with the bathwater. We still need science, but we need real science. We don't need fake science with an agenda and then a limited scope on we're not going to examine any evidence over here because, we are the science, and that's not science. Well, I would argue that itself is not a scientific method. where new evidence presents and you fail to look at it or fail to respond to it, other than character assassination and saying, oh, he doesn't understand the science. Oh, really?
Well, I think, I think the biggest thing that you did, which I think you came up with a different method, that everything that you preach, you've done it. The same way you developed the Bosu ball because you were trying to balance it on something, and you noticed what was happening. So I think a lot of times the science is too far away from the gym, if you want to put it, the gym. And I think sometimes trainers like yourself, I mean, you were a football athlete yourself, and not a big guy, so you had to figure out a way to be more efficient on the field, right? Many times I think sometimes the trainers are too far away from the field, and I
Yes.
and I think that distance, it creates a problem, because I think science could be good, but when it is on the field, and I think a
Yes.
lot of stuff, it's outside on the lab with control variables, right? So now I was listening to you, and I'm gonna ask you a question. When they teach a speed or a sprinting technique, you see the guy super stiff. What do you think about that?
Well,
I'm
I
just
think, yeah, I think it's the fundamental flaw, because if we look at the survival functions, okay, the most basic survival functions that are more important than water and food, if you don't have water and food. So if you don't have water and food and you can't order it on DoorDash, you got to go catch it, kill it, bring it back. Well, then air is your most important thing because you have to breathe and you have to do
yeah,
it now. Locomotion is your next most important thing. Swinging and throwing, catching and carrying, those are the 5 survival functions that were once required for life. And
yeah,
if you couldn't do that, your family didn't live.
yeah,
So there was a natural order of efficiency, as the game is that challenging and that give and take, that if I don't catch my next antelope or whatever I'm going to eat,
yeah,
my family doesn't eat. So there's a heart attack need to meet the demand to bring home the food. Locomotion, swinging, throwing, catching, carrying, and that is not a stiff activity. There's all sorts of spinal movement because the entire body is moving. And to move the center of mass in a linear fashion requires everything in the body rotating perfectly to move the center of mass straight. And if I want to change direction, well, then it's different vectors, right? So
yeah,
in running, it is never stiff. We have pressure and we have
yes,
differential, the volumetric and that fluid and pneumatic differential. That can make a huge difference. In fact, it does,
yeah,
but that requires movement. And so
definitely.
this dogma that has been fed to the industry, that you're not even allowed to teach that person something dynamic until they've mastered and become good enough at deer in headlights. So the nervous system, it's already nervous. It wants to keep you alive. There's nothing we should do in training to take the nervous system and pattern the energetic response the wrong way. I have to go down before I go up. And if I'm sending tension internally up, well, that's what stiffness is. And you can't land in balance when you're stiff like that.
You're stiff like that,
Yes.
100%.
So the whole thing is just silly.
You
And I
said it.
think,
Yeah,
and it's been the dogma that you want to keep your head perfectly still, right? Not this, not this, anything. You want to keep your head like that has been the dogma since the beginning. And I think one of the reasons is that most of the time, the vantage point from which people were analyzing gait was from the side. And from the side, you can't see
what's
that
happening?
in a frontal plane. So of the head, of the torso, of the shoulders, right? It's figure eights. Object in motion stays in motion. So it's not this like, And the technology to see it from the front, right? So you can tell a
Yes,
photo
yes,
in
yes, yes.
and see it
Yeah,
is a necessary element. If I'm going to break down your running, I want to see it from the front, and I want to see it from the side. But if I could only see it from one vantage point, it's necessary to see it from the front, where I can determine balance, because balance is going to optimize the stride length and the stride frequency.
And
So
the power, right, that you're
yes,
putting.
while I can measure the stride length from the side, but
That's
I'm
right.
not necessarily controlling the input variable that is required to get the longest stride length, which is perfect balance. So if force vectors are going off, your body must compensate for the inefficiency that is robbing you of the power that would otherwise be put into the purpose, as opposed to compensating for just inadequacy of balance. And we see non-contact injuries just skyrocketed ever since this freeze and squeeze your spine stiff became the mandate. And is it any wonder that,
So, you know,
let me just tell him that I'm gonna call him. Okay.
so
Yeah, so
yeah,
I was just gonna say, this is a paradigm shift in the same way that Fosbury's high jump technique changed the game. And all I'm doing is pointing out the simplest, costs nothing. It is absolutely 100% free. The idea that you can just put your head over your foot, and that is the key to
everything starts
balance.
falling into place.
And it's literally that simple. Like, you don't need to overcomplicate it. It's let's establish the physical integrity. Let's maintain the physical integrity. And now let's train according to that physical integrity, where you have mastery of one side and the ability to transition to mastery on the other side, so that you've established and you maintain perfect balance. And I'm saying perfect balance.
Perfect balance. Yeah.
A tiger, does the tiger have perfect balance? Yes.
He does. He does.
Right. And by necessity. By
yes.
necessity. We're so smart that we can be a brain in a jar and arrange a society that can, I could be in a wheelchair and I need to, blink to communicate.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a tiger wouldn't make it in those circumstances. A human being can.
That's right.
So just because we can exist and perhaps even thrive without the participation of the body in the case of someone paralyzed, it doesn't mean that that is ideal.
That's right. That's right. That's right. No, I mean, I love what you said. You know, when I was a kid, I was starting to train and play a lot of tennis. One of my coaches, because he used to talk about the warm up, and he said, "Listen, man, a tiger doesn't stretch, doesn't warm up when he's gonna chase an impala. He just runs, and the body is already ready to do that. There is not a pre-warm up routine. There is not a stretching. I mean, there is some stretching laying down that has happened, but the body doesn't need to really fully warm up in order for him to sprint. It's just something that your body is conditioned to do. And you see in all the tigers and all the animals in the jungle, the spine moves constantly.
Yes.
And even a dog, the spine, when they run, the spine moves. It's not a locked, fixed position. Yes. What is interesting about what you said is that, I grew up basically trying to train to play tennis. Okay. And at some point, we were away from the weight training a lot. But as I got older and I kind of have my own training, I had a lot of people that put them through some strength training, kind of like trying to be strongmen to improve strength quick and in a bulk, in a way. And what I noticed is that their level of athleticism went down. They just became stiffer, became slower, their balance, their swings. It's almost to me that the strength goes up, coordination goes down. It's almost like it's harder to maintain it at a proper, And I don't know, I was a very fan of the Sports Science Lab with Mark Marinovich.
Yes.
Which probably you heard about him. It's all about your system in a different way.
Yes.
To me, you are an expression of that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a question. For you, what is coordination? Because a lot of people talk about it, but I don't think people know what it is. Can you say your definition?
Yeah, well, how I would answer that is I would say the definition of balance is coordination. So playing a violin requires the balance and coordination of holding down the correct strings, releasing the others, and then, putting the bow to the string to make it vibrate and make music. That is a form of balanced movement because it is coordinated. So everything is in the right place at the right time, creating the appropriate response to either neutralize threat or seize opportunity. And where the strength coach industry just didn't have a clue is movement as it relates to gait and relates to martial. So you could think of locomotion as how fast, very objective, how far, objective, how long. Those are all objective measures.
Yeah.
But there are subjective measures, which is can you get there in the face of opposition that doesn't want you to get there? And can you stay there when opposition comes to kill you and take your stuff? So unless you understand the principles of martial movement, well, then it doesn't matter how fast. You're not as fast as a tiger. Doesn't matter how long. You're going to see one, he's going to get you, right? It doesn't matter how far, because unless you are capable when the opportunity presents, well, then it was all good for nothing. And so the strength industry was too focused on the strength measures as they evolved into the big three: the deadlift, the bench press, and the squat. And I like the exercises. They can be done extremely productively, and you can funnel all of that increased strength to better function, provided you understand the coordination of balanced gait. And if I understand that, now my body will start to say, oh, I can train that moment. I can train that moment. And I have the control to drop my center of mass. And dropping the center of mass, raising the base, is how an athlete makes a move. Barry Sanders is going to run. He's going to be dropping his center. He's going to be lifting his base, which buys him time to read the reaction of the opponent. And there's no restriction. He's going as fast as gravity will pull you down, because unless you have something to assist it, your body can only move at the speed of gravity going down. So internal restrictive tension, landing in an imbalanced position, so you're not delivering force clean and receiving and expressing it clean, causes problems. And so back to this, we can have our cake and eat it too. When we give a training certification, our entry one, the RMTS, Rotational Movement Training Specialist, the participants proceed to get stronger that next week. Whatever their PRs were, now they're beating their PRs because we are now integrating parts of the body that were not integrated before. So it's a wonderful situation where stronger is better. We have this black and white thinking that, oh, if I get strong, I'm going to be all wrong. Well, yes and no. It depends on how you're getting strong.
Exactly.
And so, you have these functional trainers saying, oh, barbells are the worst thing ever. It's like, you're the worst thing ever if you can't
No.
use
There
of
is
a
a purpose
tool.
to that, right?
Well, it's how you use the tool. You can't tell me that hammers suck. If hammers suck because when you wash your windows with them, they break, that doesn't mean that hammers are bad. It means that you're the bad carpenter. You're the bad window washer, right? So it's this childish male ego, immaturity, feelings of inadequacy, feelings of envy. It comes down to money and reputation. Oh, I'm going to destroy him because that's going to somehow make me part of the greater club and we'll win with numbers. And I don't want to be ostracized by, my bully peers who are going to foist this. Oh, you have to do a Palloff press. It's the most important exercise. It's so absurd. And the wonderful thing is, it is so easy to correct. It's not like they have big government, big media, big pharma, big whatever. It's not like they have that kind of money, and they're not competing on that scale that pulls in and sucks in the evil participants who are screwing up the world right now on purpose, trying to destroy it. Okay. That's a much harder fight to win. And the only way we're going to win it is by empowering the citizenry to have physical integrity they themselves can trust in. So when they are told a silly, stupid story that they're supposed to believe and be afraid of, and then obey instructions and orders, put on your mask, stand there, don't go out of your house, do this, do that. Okay, yeah, boys or girls, yay, okay, girls or boy, yay, whatever. The whole thing is nuts. The whole thing is insane. And that's a tough one to tackle. But the fitness industry comes together and we start teaching true balance and true strength. Well, you watch this world change. Now we have individual autonomous creatures of God made in his image to tell stories to his glory. That's what it's about. And right now, the whole thing is being weakened and is being compromised by a bunch of scientist trainers who tell you things, they don't teach you things, right? They don't take the time to even test their own theories and to examine their own nonsense. As the golfer's spine passes through neutral at ball contact, that's an inexcusable mistake because the golfer's spine was never in neutral throughout the entire swing process. It was never, ever neutral to start, at ball contact, and to finish. It's not, we're going to train the decelerators. Oh, we're going to do this. Oh, it's, the absurdity is maddening because it's so absurd. And this is the one area where we can fundamentally change it to make life better for people. The ultimate creature comfort is balance and coordination. That's the ultimate creature comfort, is life doesn't suck. You're not in pain all the time because you're moving well. And it's going to happen. It's just that it's taking way too long. And in the meantime, all the athletes who've been suffering continue to suffer because some misinformed, brainwashed trainers doing stupid things with that person in the name of science, telling me, for example, that I'm the stupid one. I'm the charlatan. I'm the grifter. I'm the guy who doesn't understand science. Oh, really? And now they're too afraid to even, none of them would ever do this right now.
No,
I would just ask them a simple question. I'd say, all right, well, what is the first thing you do to establish physical integrity to move the body? Like, what do you guys teach? Probably nothing, except for, right? Except for freeze and squeeze your core, because they have that core stability. For an axial load that's super heavy, yeah, you don't want your spine changing position, but you don't even want a neutral to deadlift your heaviest. That's not a neutral spine. You don't want a neutral spine to bench press your heaviest. That's not neutral spine, right? So this idea,
and I mean, and obviously, if you put maximum load and you're gonna compress, right, with the barbell on top of you, you're gonna have some sort of a different compression, right? It's gonna be a little bit different. But the thing is, that activity, you don't use it every single day. That
well,
is
it's systemic, but bilateral strength is extremely
important.
Yes, and it's how you get your top end pressure management. So you can think of strength as pressure management. So you are fluid, and so hydraulic is how the body works, and then there's a pneumatic regulation called breath. And that's what we're dealing with. So if your body can support the 400 pounds and squat it, that means that you're capable of managing that pressure on the system, the skeleton, and the fascia and everything held together with it. That right there is what it is. And being able to manage greater pressure, provided you're not eroding the balance and coordination and range of motion, is a very good thing. It's why men are better than sports at women. They're fundamentally stronger. They're just stronger. The bones are stronger. The heart is stronger. Everything is stronger. And so it's better in sports, and it's just so simple. So throwing out strength like some of these functional guys say, that's stupid too. But it is less, but here's the catch. It is less stupid to not lift weights and work on coordination than it is to work on strength and not work on coordination, to work against coordination. Because that's how you get muscle bound. And that's how, oh, I'm stronger, but I'm not as fast at throwing the ball. Well, no shit. You've been doing something that's preventing your body from integrating. So what would you expect? And now the increase in strength without the capacity to express it efficiently increases the likelihood of injury. And if you look at the feet of athletes, their feet, the athlete is 2 times bigger and 3 times stronger, but his feet and her feet, they're weaker and less capable than the athlete in the 1970s who was a tiny, slow, weak athlete compared to today, who had stronger feet just from lifestyle. So the best athletes today, they're in their cleats anytime they're moving because they're being shepherded around all these, leagues, and oh, I'm playing this tournament here and we're going to do that there. And this whole race, but nobody's taking care of the fundamental balance and coordination and the extremity that's going to be interfacing with the ground every step. That is not as smart and it's not as strong. So I put all this powder keg of dynamite strong into a fuse that is this long. No wonder things are blowing up. And the annoying thing is that this is common sense, right? It's annoying. It's annoying when a guy with a PhD and a white lab coat can say something so stupid, so wrong, and so insidiously harmful because the harm is invisible. When you do a Palloff press, you didn't get hurt. You just patterned a stupid response that makes you a weakling good for nothing in crisis. Okay, great. How long am I going to practice that? Oh, well, that's the foundation. You need to do that all the time. Like, that's where we're at. And it's a matter of being chicken now. They're not eagles, they're chickens. Okay? They're literally, and they're dressing up as lions, and all they can say is bah, bah, right? The lion roars. The lion don't bah like a
right.
But these lions, right? Right? They're just baaing like sheep, and now they're all just silent. Will this go away? How much longer am I the expert? They're terrified. And the smart answer is just log the loss, learn the lesson, and use your fame and acclaim to ride this thing to even more prosperity. Do you know redemption is the ultimate human drama. That's what we want. We want someone to be able to recover from wrong and prosper and thrive like never before. That's a better story than you were right all along. That's not as good a story. If you're storytelling, you want an arc, right? You begin the journey here, and then the journey transforms you, and now you land here. That's a really good story.
That's a really good
story. And that's how they can make more money. When we have a fitness industry that is acting responsibly, like coaches that can actually coach you to walk balanced, like, I mean, if we're talking about functional movement, what is more functional and useful
walking, right? Yeah.
I mean, nothing. Breathing, eating, these things. Well, eating is less important in the moment. If you don't have food, you better be able to locomote.
That's right. And well, I mean, and your first food is oxygen.
Yeah, you need to breathe. That's the priority.
If you're not breathing, you're dying.
Right. But you got a few days, you got a few days to find your water, and you got a few weeks to find your food, right?
Exactly.
You only have a few minutes to not have the air.
And also, I would say, based on what you're saying, and I love what you're saying, is that the problem, if your posture is not properly, all the other motions, when you're walking, when you're running, it's going to be compromised. So now you're compensating from the get-go. So to wrap up what you're saying, coordination basically is to connect in the two sides of your body properly.
Yes,
And
and what I would say is that it's the balance of polar opposites in more than right left. There's upper lower, there's fast slow, there's if you focus on expanding your capacity to the polarities, and one of the ones we use is longest on one side, strongest on the other side, right? And I'm in a position where I'm not getting tired. Everything is resolved. I'm ready to pounce. I have the power, right? If I'm just rock'em sock'em robot all flat, I don't have power. I don't have athleticism. So by mastering the polarities, we catch everything in between, and then we just act appropriately given the circumstances that present. So it's all very, very super simple, and it doesn't need to be overcomplicated when you understand it. It's when you don't understand it, oh, well, now we got to talk about all these things and and the person's sitting there for half an hour. They haven't moved yet. They're still in a metal folding chair looking at a PowerPoint. Okay, hour and a half just went by. We only got 15 more minutes. Well, we never even stood up and tried anything. We learned about what 19 soccer players did for 6 weeks, and that somehow proves the case that we now have to squeeze ourselves stiff. Otherwise, we're a terrible trainer who's unscientific, right? And the righteous indignation and all the bullying that gets rained down on people, most people are too afraid to raise their hand, say the emperor is wearing a straitjacket. That's not beautiful robes that are flowing down. That's he's walking around in a straitjacket, all tied up, and that's the emperor. And all you guys are praising his outfit, saying, "Oh, that's amazing," and then you foist that on your clients innocently because you didn't know, right? And now they know, but it's willful ignorance. It's no, I'm going to stay ignorant, and I'm going to scream at you as being wrong in the process. The whole thing is absurd. You should post this on X. You should post this on X because X is where I don't block people. On Instagram, I block people daily because there are so many whack-a-mole jerk-offs out there who feel so inadequate and so envious that they have to, sit there on their keyboard or their thumb and, tell everybody how, be mean to people and try to bully them and ridicule them. That's and say nonsense. That's what it's degenerated down into. And I anticipate a time in the not too distant future when it's just not cool to do that. And now everybody doesn't want you, the hater, as opposed to a peer review corrupt system that breeds haters. They hate for praise. They hate for membership. And it allows the thought leaders to stay above the fray, and then they can just use innuendo and subtle passive aggressive ways to hate on people. Oh, well, what was the intake for this person with the lower back disorder? Oh, well, you've seen 5 healthcare professionals and no one's ever done a 3-day intake on you. That's disgraceful. Oh, really? That's disgraceful? Well, how about it's disgraceful to teach someone neural engrams that work against them at getting better at moving? Is that disgraceful?
Yes.
And if it's not disgraceful, it is disgraceful once you've been informed that it's wrong, but you have willfully ignored that and ridiculed it and all the stuff.
Do you think that all this is happening? I mean,
it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah, no. It's happening because
the physical reality cannot be faked and it cannot be purchased. So if you're a rich man, doesn't matter. If you don't do the right things physically, it's revealed. 10 push-ups is 10 push-ups. And if you only did 6, well, you didn't do 10. Doesn't matter that you told us you could do 12. You didn't. You can't, because physical doesn't lie. The mind lies. The mind changes its mind. The mind can be fooled. Okay. The spirit, who knows? I don't care. That's you. It's you and your maker. I'm not going to impose my spiritual belief on anyone. But physically, if you're playing on my team and you're not playing in balance, you're going to get on the bench and we're going to kick you off the team until you learn how to move right so you can participate and be useful and not a drag on our team.
I think I think a lot of what you're saying, I think it has happened because what you're talking about, I mean, again, it's more of a the quality of the movement, and it's a little bit harder to measure it. I mean, you measure in speed, but it's quality of movement. You know, it's much easier to measure a bench press or measure a high jump than
Yes.
it is to measure quality of movement. You know, that's why I think they don't realize that these training methods that they're being proclaimed, they don't really help football players. They don't help soccer players. And when you really ask, I think, or basketball, when you really ask basketball players or soccer players, do they want to really do the off-court training, traditional, all the lift and all that? Many of them, they don't really want to do it because I don't think they can see a lot of benefit on the field. I mean, they say, well, it makes sense to get stronger. You know, I think it was, what is the name of the Canadian guy that is a MMA? It's
Oh,
Jean-Pierre, George Jean-Pierre. He
yeah,
said,
George St. Pierre, yeah.
yeah. So they asked him, and that was interesting. They asked him, say, George, you train because you think that this makes you a lot better. And he said, no, man, it makes me look better, but it doesn't really make me that much better on the field. And I think there is a misunderstanding there, and I think it's a little bit of that. Now, like you said, I think the stronger the better, but I think if you lose, you know, this coordination that we're talking about. I mean, I don't know how many strength coaches you see them on the neck is like that. You know, how can you play in a sport with your neck like that, going forward, your chest like that, or walking with your feet like a duck? You know, there is a, and now I'm going to ask you this because you do a lot of work with the feet, and I have your soulmates and all that. Question, soul steps. So what what would you say if you had a kid, you know, he's a tennis player, he's 11, 12 years old, he comes to you, he say, hey, listen, train me a little bit for tennis, and you see him that he's overpronating. What would you tell to that dad? Because I have those cases a lot. What would you tell to that dad when you see his kid and say, hey, his kids are like, his feet are like that and overpronated? What would you say to him? How would you approach him and say, listen, we got to do something here? What would you tell him?
Well, the first thing to understand is that it is the upper body that determines the capacity of the entire body to be balanced. So if the upper body is not correct, you're keeping it stiff, for example, your feet can't help you because you don't have that line. You don't have the gravitational flow. So the force is going fluid to the floor. It's getting caught up and restricted. And so now your feet, they're not in a position to win. Your center of mass is not properly. So, okay, it's dipping you in just from the beginning. All right. So what are we going to do about this? We're going to teach you how to coil your core so that you get hip movement. And if we removed your legs, you could still run around on just the little stubs because it's the spinal engine and the hips can drive with figure eights. Okay. And that will help the feet just doing that. Now, with the soul steps, what we're doing with the soul steps is we have a patented pitch that allows you to wedge your weight forward in your feet and to improve the shin angle and to block that out, getting to that point where you are poised to pounce. You're not getting tired and there's no burden, but you don't have weight in your heels. And you learn how to pronate later.
Later.
If the knee goes beyond the toes, you can pronate till the cows come home because your foot will spin out. If the
That's
knee
right.
is in front of the toe, you don't have heel pressure. If I need my heels rooted to the ground for balance, I don't have access to my whole foot when I need it. I need to
So,
learn.
yes, let me stop you. So you said when you pronate, but your knee is in front of your toe, it's
Yes.
okay. It's
Yes,
okay.
that is correct. And you're going to need to do it to run that way. I need to hit
Yeah.
this. I need a shin angle.
Yeah.
If I don't have a shin angle, I don't have the skeletal transmission of force in the direction that I need it.
So you brought me to something when you said that. That's why I tried to emphasize it. You know, about 15. No, I mean when I started with my gym about 10 years ago, there were people that were coming to me that some of the trainers were telling them that the knee should not go over the toe.
Yeah, I mean, good God, how can
I
you
mean,
run
this is
forward?
15. You
How
know,
can you run forward without your knee going past your toe? Like, I
it's
mean,
impossible, right? The spine will go down
no,
if
I
you.
mean, it would be like if I want to run, there's a forward intent that, let me just back up for a second.
Yes,
Forward, forward intent in the foot is is the root of athleticism.
that's right.
So, and I don't want burden. I don't want to be getting tired and be doing calf raises all day because, oh, I'm not supposed to use my heel. No, I want to sink and resolve all of it so there's no slack in the body and I don't need my heels. That is the athletic state. And a tennis player, I mean, think about receiving the serve. Okay.
Right.
You're there, you're seeing them doing it, and you're gonna do your little boom. You're gonna
You,
time it. You're
yeah,
gonna time it with a jolt of force that lets you heads in the middle of the jolt so that you can now weight one side and suddenly get to the ball.
yep,
That is, I mean, and that is what is happening in tennis. And
that's
then
right.
with tennis, you want to talk about a massive coil and verticalization. I mean, the guy's reaching up to the
It's
throw,
nice.
the more perfect the toss, the more perfect the serve. So
That's right.
they rehearse countless times just putting the ball in the air. Let
Yeah,
it let it drop in the square. Get it to this height. If I can serve myself up the perfect meatball every time, well, now I'm going to be really good at tennis. But if I've spent my time in the weight room stiffening myself, getting uprooted, well, I've actually worked counter to the objective that I'm going to need with a whole bunch of wrong strong that's going in the wrong direction at the wrong time. And now that person doesn't load right. Nothing happened and their knee snapped in half. And now they can't play for a year because they have surgery. And now they don't get the scholarship. And now they don't live their dream. These are like real life examples of what's happening.
what's happening? 100%.
And you're never going to eliminate all injuries. You'll never eliminate accidents that just happen. People still going to get hurt, but we need to change the odds and the ratio because right now the number of injured is increasing like never before, especially the female athletes
Oh yeah,
who
and
have a little, you
it's
know,
in off the field, right? And it's almost off the field. The injuries
well,
are happening.
and if I have a Q angle that makes my knee vulnerable, all the more reason to get the weight to that side so that I can put something on the outside of the foot.
That's right. That's right.
Basic initiation. If I'm running straight, the basic initiation is outside to inside. So if I'm landing inside, I'm foregoing the capacity to use that structural integrity of the outside to set up the inside. If the inside goes first, there's no setup and you got to go inside. Okay, well, maybe you did it a little bit too early and maybe you just hurt yourself. Right?
Yeah.
The industry is going to be cleaned up and we're going to get rid of the nonsense because it can't continue to exist. And it's all happening and it's, little onesie twosie, just someone will listen to this and say, hey, gee, that seemed to make sense. Let me do a little of my own homework.
So now,
I'm not going to trust the
yeah,
scientist who just tells me,
yeah,
especially when something that the person has said, like a golfer's spine is neutral at ball contact, like that's an inexcusable mistake because it's not a mistake, it's a misunderstanding.
yeah, yeah. It's the whole where it's starting from. It's wrong. So now,
Yes,
question
exactly.
to you. Yeah, question to you. So I know that I kind of got into this direction of training because I bought for my gym the Versa Climber that
Yep.
he kind of
Yeah.
have the crawl and crawl, right? So that's kind of how the first time that I really did started to kind of click in my head, right? And then to tell you the truth, I tossed the Versa Climber because I felt like you're needing more motion than just this. It's not this. That is
Right.
it's
Yeah. Yeah. Figure
you're
eight.
right.
Yeah.
So how do you study? How do you went into this route? because me started with the Versa Climber, and then I realized, man, is that how do you start it? Because you're far ahead in the game compared to me. How do you started thinking of this?
I just always came back to fight, flight, response ability, and the flight was objective. So if I have made you faster, I know that we have empirical improvement. Now, that doesn't mean that we optimized it just because you got better from the things we did. It means you got better, but it doesn't necessarily mean you optimized it. And when I started the fundamental tool manipulation, manipulating a stick and manipulating a rope and manipulating a stone, those basics, you're going to, if you're a purist and you follow that empirical reality, is he throwing the baseball faster? Okay, he is. Subjectively, is he as sore when he's done? No, he's not. Okay, an empirical improvement with a subjective improvement, those are, once you have that, well, then you have it, right?
Then you have.
And the flight is objective and the fight is subjective, but it's all, life is a game of odds, and you want to play the best odds you can. So at the poker table, you got, you get your cards,
Yeah.
and Bo Jackson is dealt a royal flush and there's no wild cards. So he doesn't have to train. All he has to do is play because he has a royal flush.
Yes,
Guy
sir.
like me, I got a pair of sevens or something. Okay, well, I got to play smart now because maybe I can pick up another seven, right?
Yeah.
Oh, three of a kind. That ain't so bad, right? It's not pro. I can't be a pro, but I can be my best, and my own athletic inadequacy, the fact that I'm not better than a better man, just, without training, that gave me the competitive edge and the drive to figure out, how can I beat a better man? How can I take a guy who's faster than me and me get faster than him?
That's right.
Well, and I started figuring it out. And then once you achieve a certain insight, well, now you see the reason differently. You see a different view. You say, oh, well, everybody's pointed over there, but that's not where we want to go. We want to go there. Why do I know? Because I reached this level where I could see the obviousness of it, and all these guys are operating here in blind faith. So that's,
you know what's something interesting what you said. I mean, I was hearing you talking about the gravity. Usain Bolt, he mentions that the key to be faster is to be on the ground. How quick
yeah, well, that's funny too, because yes, it's interesting. In the air, you are slowing down. As soon as your foot, as soon as you're leaving, you're slowing down, because if you weren't, you would just long jump around the world and going forever.
There is these people that are saying that running is jumping.
It's, yeah, well, running is running.
Running is not really jumping.
Running is running, because jumping requires more time on the ground to load for a longer time to get more of the explode if I'm committing to a jump. All right.
Right.
So that's it. That's just a task specific. But when I'm running, the irony is that the ground is what makes me faster, but I want to get off the ground as fast as I can. So it's the amortization of the land load launch that has to be sequenced perfectly to make the whole thing come off. Hey, I have another call that's coming up.
Man, this was awesome.
So, yeah, and I appreciate this opportunity. Post and tag.
I will, man, and I will send it to you. Okay, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Carlos. A real pleasure as well.
Thank you. All right, man. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.